Welcome to the third Alpes-Maritimes Nice-Cannes marathon, which doubles up as the French national championships. And it's not the sort of day that many of the competitors were expecting. 12,000 entries, the biggest ever for this event, 50 nations represented, and over 800 from Britain itself entering into today's race. Kenya and Ethiopia again putting in a strong contingent, and they're expected not only to set the pace, but to dominate the podium at the end of the day. An 8 a.m. start for the race today, and the leaders or the winners should be crossing the line in roughly 2 hours 10 minutes. That's the target time that they're after, and of course it represents the record that was set last year by Adaline Roche of 2:10.17, and they've brought in a pretty handy pacemaker for the first half, Luca Kando, who's been asked to run at 3:05 per kilometre to ensure that the leaders have a crack at that record time. Well, the conditions may not be ideal for sitting on the beach, but they're just about perfect for marathon running. 16 degrees, there's no wind, there's a little bit of drizzle in the air, nothing to trouble these men, and we should see a fairly tough pace from the start. 7:01, wearing that distinct vest, is Alexandra Louison. She's a handy triathlete. We'll see what she can do in the marathon. This is her first ever marathon, and there are plenty of first-timers here for today's race. As I say, a massive field turning out, just under 12,000, the official figures. And the men and women mixing it up on the start line. Christelle Donnet is one of the runners here today, looking to make an impression at the front of the field.
J'ai encore appris à New York.
She says she learned in the New York Marathon that she had to put herself up against the very best in the world if she wanted to improve, if she wanted to get a PB, and she wants to run against the Africans who dominate in such an aggressive style around the world. She says she needs more experience at half marathon and the marathon distance if she's going to get better, and she's hoping that the level throughout the whole of France will go up because of races like these here in Nice-Cannes. Well, we see how she gets on.
Pour avoir cette hargne et ne pas avoir peur de les battre.
C'est mon premier marathon.
Cédric Pelassier, wearing number 10 today. He's going for the French national title. It's his first marathon. He's used to the half marathon, but he's come here purely for the national title. Alexandra Louison, the triathlete, member of the French Army, and she said it's going to be amazing running with over 11,500 runners. She likes the conditions. She's had a look at the course, and she's used to running marathons after an Ironman. She's never done one on its own, so she's going to be one to watch out for. Can she add the marathon national title to her duathlon title? And away they go, 42.195 kilometers to go, and as ever the pace over the first 100 meters is absolutely brutal. Well, those further back on the line will just have to settle into their own pace. Everyone wearing a bib under 700 is entered into the French national championships. The elite runners from Kenya and Ethiopia with numbers 1,000 through to 1,020. Well, a couple of the French runners up front in the meantime. 80% of the field made up by men, but I can guarantee that the top women, like Radia Roba and Emily Rotich, will beat 99% of the field. They are that good. Well, a steady pace for those who didn't manage to get a good starting position. And there's no point wasting too much energy at this stage. Just go with the flow and then look for space as it opens up. Well, the coast is going to be on their left-hand side all the way along. This time of year, with temperatures around 16 degrees, there won't be that many distractions on the beach. And for these men, it will be eyes firmly on the tarmac. number 120 or 1020, Luca Kanda. He is the pacemaker for today. As I mentioned, he's been asked to run 3:05 for each kilometre, which will bring them in at just over 2 hours 10 minutes. Can he do it? Well, I think he'll be fine. He's capable of a 61-minute half marathon, so he's a class act over the shorter distance. I expect he'll pull out at around 22 kilometres. Wearing purple today is the favourite amongst the women. That's Radia Roba from Ethiopia. She's got a fastest time of 2:35, but every time she goes over the half marathon distance, she picks up speed. Aline Kambuliv there, wearing 711, former cyclist, come runner, and she's doing pretty well. Every time she hits the road, she improves her PB, now at 37. Certainly one to watch out for, and she set out aggressively as well. 1009 is Stephen Koech of Ethiopia, another man who's more familiar with a half marathon distance. And 1005 is Sami Rotich. I'm not sure he's going to match the record time of 2:10, but he can certainly beat 2:12 if he has a good run today. Kanda just checking his clock at the kilometre markers to make sure that he's on schedule. And there really is no time for warming up. Going through 5,000 metres. Remember the marathon distance, 42 kilometres, 195 metres in all. The course taking them past the airport on their left-hand side, then they'll head back down towards the coast. They'll go through Villeneuve-Loubet, Antibes. The high point comes at around 34 kilometres when they go over the Cap d'Antibes. That's only 34 metres of altitude. Total of 173 metres to be climbed. Roba in purple in that second group of men has lost about a minute and a half to the race leaders. Now that's pretty impressive, because that will put her on a pace of around 2:25, which is 10 minutes quicker than her PB. I think the experts would say that she's gone off a little bit too quickly, but we'll see. She's getting better every time she goes out. This is the leading group of men, 11 men tucked in there, all looking reasonably comfortable in the early stages. Amongst the top Frenchmen, we've got Rachid Ganmouni. He's wearing bib number 28, and he's in a white-green strip. You may be able to pick him out in that group, just on the right-hand side. Actually from Morocco originally, but he's switched to France. No definite height advantage in the marathon, but you certainly don't want to be carrying too much extra weight. And all these men, very, very lean indeed. There's Radia Roba, and she's buried herself in the midst of that group. That's a good tactic from her. She can really take her choice of pacemakers in an event like this, where the women start alongside the men. .1034, the second woman in the field. That's Emily Rotich. Really came to our notice about 10 years ago when she won a 10-kilometre race, was given the day off from her family duties, and went and won herself a training camp with Lorna Kiplagat, and she's never looked back since then. 10:20, the pacemaker, and doing pretty good job so far. Just under the 3:05 for the first 5 kilometres. The pace slowed a little now, but he'll be hoping to get to the halfway stage at around 1:04:30. That should be good enough to give them a crack at the 2 hours 10-minute marker. 1:04 would be a little easier, obviously, but they've got to be careful they don't go too hard. Almost 25% of the course run, and Luca Kanda is doing exactly what he was employed to do. Just behind him is 10:02. That's Gabo Burka. wearing the purple vest, 23-year-old with a PB of 2:10.18, so he'll be feeling reasonably comfortable at the moment. One of the chasing groups out there on the course, and there is Rober at the back of that. It looks as though the second woman, Emily Rotich, has lost touch with Radia Rober. Just a few seconds, 7 or 8 seconds, but it's a significant margin that Rober has opened up. The lower numbers, remember, are all French nationals going for that French title today. And there's a whole mass of runners capable of running sub 2 hours 30. Most of the internationals arriving early, but the French coming in on the TGV, only 6 hours from Paris. It's about 2.5 hours from Marseille. There is Rober, and she looks to have picked the pace up, looking very comfortable indeed, very fluent. And Rotich of Kenya from the Rift Valley, the Kalenjin who produced so many top runners. Of course, Kip Keino really starting it off back in 1968, where the Kenyans took 3 Olympic gold medals. One of the top French women there, number 700. Keep an eye out for her. She started pretty steady. She's second place amongst the French women at the moment, but she's a very good runner indeed. Adaline Roche wearing 700 in the white, red and black vest. There's one of her main rivals, Aline Camboulive. Well, the pace car just 10 metres or so in front of this group, and still Kanda pushing it on. There have been no attempted breaks so far, which is somewhat unusual in this marathon. Someone usually has a crack at around 10 kilometres to get away, but no, they're all happy to sit in there. And coming up to the halfway stage, which is as they approach Antibes, one of the little climbs. It doesn't seem too much, but it certainly puts the pulse rate up. But if they can just forget about that, have a look over to their left, it really is a spectacular sight as they work their way south along the coastline. And it's not going to be long before Kanda in the front just pulls to the side, and he lets the rest of the group do the work. And it does look as though the pace picking up a little bit. One or two of the front runners starting to struggle. Amongst them, Jackson Kerwer. We've got El Hassan Lassini, who's been tucked in nicely. He's starting to drop off. And Joash Mutai also struggling a little, but his personal best of 2:13 would suggest that a pace around 2:10 a little bit fast. Rollerblades, we've seen bicycles. That's the way to support a marathon. You get to see just about as much of the event as you want. And the tarmac in this part of the world, beautifully smooth. Well, they're well through the halfway stage, which of course was 21 kilometres. They averaged 3:06 to that part of the race. There was still a group of 11, but the pace of 3:07 per kilometre since then is still too quick for one or two, and the group's starting to diminish as they go into the second half of the race. 26 kilometres completed. They've still got just over 12 to go. And if they're going to beat the record of 2:10, they've got to pick the pace up slightly. Batoru Sagai looking very comfortable out front. Thousands upon thousands, many raising money for good causes here on the Nice-Cannes. It's an event that's growing year by year, and they're hoping to push the international numbers up to around 4,500, 5,000 next year. Radia Roba still leading the women's, 1:12.50 her time at the halfway stage. 15 seconds she's built now over Rotich, and still looking to be running just the same tempo. No change from that very first kilometre, so no signs of her having any trouble at the moment. Rotich there in the blue and white vest. 15 seconds, can she make it up? She sounds a little bit heavier on her feet, and she still has visual contact with the leading woman, the best of the French, wearing 700. Slightly unorthodox style of running, but it's effective. The pressure socks are on for Adaline Roche, 26 years old. She's actually been down here for 2 weeks. Here's her main rival. She's just overtaking Camberleve, actually. So the fight for the French national title is just about as strong as it is for the men's title here. Kenya and Ethiopia dominating as ever. At the back of the group is the leading Frenchman, Rachid Ganmouni, who I mentioned came from Morocco, an area called Rotich. 13th in the 2003 World Championships. There he is in the green and white, actually just back from a doping ban in March this year. And so looking to resurrect his career. He's the only man who's keeping pace with the African nations. Well, you can read the body language for yourself. Certainly 1:0.10, looking very comfortable. That's Botoro Segai. He's never run a marathon before, so he's into unknown territory as he comes into the second half of the race. The yellow bib of Stephen Koech, very good road runner. And he's got a vicious kick. Should he be up with the leaders at the end of the day, he can certainly push a sub 4:30 last mile on a race like this. And if he's in a group, that sort of speed will do a whole lot of damage. But he cannot afford to let the rest of the racers get away. And here are the two leaders, the blue and white of Segai. And he's looking very relaxed at the moment, having a chat with Mark Tanui, the 29-year-old Kenyan in the yellow vest. And Tanui is usually strong over the second half. Certainly showed that sort of speed in Eindhoven, where he did a 2:07.50. He's not going to get anywhere near that time today. But I think Botoro Segai will know that he's going to have to pull something pretty special out of the bag to beat Tanui today. 1:00.09, that is Stephen Koech, and he's running with Gabo Burka, another of the Ethiopians here. And there's the leading Frenchman, and Ganmouni is certainly got his mind set and finishing on the podium today, and that would be a major achievement if he can do that. He's in a bit of a battle with Hailu Shumi, the man in purple. Here is the man who's been leading for the last 3 or 4 kilometres. They've got under 6 kilometres to go now, and Botoro Segai has left Mark Tanui. He's made a very early bid for the finish. Hailu Shumi broken away from Rachid Ganmouni as well. So the top 4 are sorting themselves out. 1:02, that's Gabo Burka, 23-year-old Ethiopian. Now he's done 2:10.18, and he did it on this very course last year. Well, what a run it's been for Botoro Segai. An astonishing finish to break away from Mark Tanui, and he wins the Nice-Cannes Marathon, the 3rd running of this event. It's not quite a record time. He's only 20 seconds or so outside the record set last year. 2:10.26 for Botoro. Mark Tanui finishes in 2:11 dead. That's a wonderful time, but some 4 minutes off his personal best. 3rd place goes to Hailu Shumi with a time of 2:12.23, and a strong finish from Shumi at 23. He's got a lot of running to do. And the French national champion for 2010 is going to be Rachid Ganmouni. He was the only non-Ethiopian or Kenyan brave enough to go with the pace of the 2 top African nations. Vice President of the French Athletics Association, congratulates Jan Mooney. Stephen Koech coming in 5th. In the red bib, a good 6th place for Abraham Shalanga. He'll be delighted with that. He was there at 30 kilometers, just faded in the last couple, as did Gabo Burker. He was looking for a podium finish, but he's really suffered over the last couple of kilometers. He comes in with a time 2:15:03 behind the best. So the win goes to Sagai of Ethiopia, 2:10:27. He'll be impressed with that. The leading woman, Radia Roba, she went early and she stayed ahead of her main rival, Emily Rotich, all the way through. It's been a beautiful run from Roba. She's only 21. She's run in Mumbai, in Prague, in Seville and Ottawa over the last 24 months. And who knows where her future is going to be. She's a class act. The time, well, that's a fantastic performance from her. Just waiting for confirmation of Roba's time, 2:30:35. Second place in the women's event goes to Emily Rotich, 2:33:05. Well, that's not the best run we've ever seen from her, but I think she'll be pretty happy with the way things are going. Looking for the French national title, and it will go to Adaline Roche. Well, those 120 kilometers that she pumps out every single week have paid off. Her coach said she'd be on the podium, and she is on the podium. 3rd place for her overall and the French title. The runner-up in the French Nationals goes to Aline Camboli, 4th overall. That's a wonderful run for the former cyclist. And the triathlete, duathlete, gymnast, you name it, she can do it. Alexandra Louison finishes 5th overall. Wonderful time from her, 2:47:21. So Roba it is of Ethiopia who takes the title. That's a PB, but still 3 minutes outside the course record. Rotich in 2nd, Adaline Roche of France in 3rd, and a PB also for Roche. She'll be very, very happy with that. 4 seconds quicker than her previous best. Further down the field, well, a number of the runners have yet to go through the 30-kilometer mark, so they've got a lot of work still to do. And the pace at every drink stop, they got drink stops every 5 kilometers, sponge stops every 7.5. Don't need too much cooling off on a day like this. Perfect running conditions, though. So important to keep the body hydrated. 1 or 2 smiles that were there before have vanished a long time ago. It's all about pain, but as soon as they finish, they'll forget the pain and they'll be booking in for next year's events. Sunday, November the 13th, already scheduled for the 4th running of the Nice-Cannes Marathon. Relay teams entered today as well, teams of 6 with legs of various distances. Well, the record may not have been broken today, but we've got over 200 runners cracking the 2 hours 50-minute mark, which is a sign of a very, very high-class marathon field indeed. The #1 veteran clocking 2 hours 20:34. That's an astonishing time. And so some very impressive performances being seen on the Riviera today. Well, some of these shoes will have taken in excess of 42,000 paces, taking a little bit of punishment. T-shirts and medals for most, the prize money, the bulk of it, heading to Ethiopia and Kenya, as has been the way over the last 5 years or so. They get more and more impressive, and no one as yet has found a way of beating them. Plenty of local fruit and refreshment on offer for those who finish the course. Some of the runners certainly look as though they're stocking up for the next week. And then they'll be heading towards the massage tent, where limbs are being revived all important if they've got plans to enter another race. Well, there's the queue for the massage. No wonder. No wonder. A good job being done by lots of volunteer masseurs and physiotherapists who've come down to help out. And what a day for the Ethiopians. They've done the double. Radia Roba winning the women's and Boturu Sagai taking the men's in a time of 2:10.26, just 12 seconds outside the record. That's all from the Alp Maritime Nice-Cannes Marathon for this year. We'll be back along with the estimated 15,000 next year. We'll see you then. Goodbye.